Hello, and welcome to Life Matters, the program where we engage life issues with critical thinking and a biblical worldview. Life Matters is an educational outreach resource of Assure Women's Center in Omaha, Nebraska. We're honored to host a variety of guests within the pro-life movement, each bringing their own unique perspectives, experiences, and backgrounds. The views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Life Matters, Assure Women's Center, or our affiliates. Our goal is to foster open, thoughtful dialogue around life-affirming issues and equip listeners to stand for life. Right now, your donation to support Assure's life-saving work can go even farther. Some donors have challenged us to raise $500,000, and if we do it, they will give us an additional $120,000. But we only receive the $120,000 if we raise $500,000 by June 13th. Last year, we served over 1,600 women, many at high risk for abortion. With your help, we can reach even more. Be part of this life-saving work. Go to firststeptolife.com/bot and give now. That's firststeptolife.com/bot. Here is our host, Toni Clarke, Executive Director of Assure Women's Center in Omaha, Nebraska.
Welcome to Life Matters, where we engage in open dialogue on complex and important life issues, equipping Christians to discuss these topics and take meaningful action in the pro-life movement. I'm your host, Toni Clarke, Executive Director of Assure Women's Center. Today, I have the joy of speaking with a true pioneer of the pro-life movement, Gina Tomes. She spent over 30 years serving women facing crisis pregnancies. She co-founded Bethlehem House in Omaha, Nebraska, which has become a flagship maternity home recognized for its outcomes. Gina now leads maternity home consulting, helping maternity homes across the country grow and thrive. Most recently, she launched the Guiding Grace Motherhood Support Network, an initiative offering long-term holistic care for women and families beyond pregnancy. Gina also had the incredible honor of speaking at the 2023 March for Life in Washington, D.C. Gina, welcome to Life Matters.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's a good pleasure to have you. And Gina's a good friend of mine as well. So let's start with your personal journey. What first drew you to this mission of serving women who are pregnant and in crisis?
I love it. Thank you so much for asking. You know, as I reflect back, I was thinking about that when I was driving here and, where it all began. And fresh out of college, I always say that I landed, my dream job, and I was in the midst of affordable housing and serving women and children and in extreme poverty and facing all kinds of barriers and pregnant. And it was then and there that, the pro-life movement, I've always been engaged in prayerful, hope and, just really in support of life, but just felt a burning desire to roll my sleeves up and create action. And that led myself and a group of individuals at that time in Omaha, Nebraska to create Bethlehem House.
Mm-hmm. So in 2005, that's when all that happened. Can you tell us what led to this creation and what kind of needs you saw that weren't being met?
Absolutely. So the number one need that we witnessed when we, got together, it was actually a 2-year process to get the house ready and really think about next steps. We were just, focused on the physical part of the house. Mm-hmm. And then in 2005, when it opened, we thought, okay, what's next now? And when women started surfacing, the number, how do I say this? I'm going to try to be clear because it was powerful. Mm-hmm. In the midst of all the barriers that they were facing, that they thought that maybe abortion was an answer for them, the most important thing that they were facing was lack of family support and somebody in their life and the ability to think through that, could I do this as a parent when my family is telling me not to? Mm-hmm. So they were lacking people that loved them unconditionally, and then a place where they could live, choose life, and plan for their foundation and future.
Well, so grateful that you all are provided that for them. I feel like that's something that the girls that we serve have in common as well. What does that family support look like? In fact, that's one of the questions that we ask them. Who supports you if you choose to, carry the term? Well, who supports you in an abortion? And sometimes just even asking them that question gets them to thinking, I probably have more support than I need to, because at the time they find out they're pregnant, I'm making a quick decision And our process allows us to slow down and have them think about that. You guys take it a step further, because for that young lady who says, I do need that family support, that's what a maternity home perhaps provides for those that don't have a family that could potentially provide that.
Absolutely, Toni. So, you all here are the experts at having that frontline conversation, and that gets them thinking about next steps. And then, that's where I feel maternity homes come in, and where we can really, take things, the entire way, through their pregnancy and even further. And I guess that's where I've always felt maternity homes are special, in that how pregnancy help organizations, crisis pregnancy centers go hand in hand. Like they really, really do, because we're not on that front line. Most of the women that find a maternity home have made the decision to parent.
Absolutely.
And now they need that support. And you're asking those questions, and, they think, well, can these strangers, because we are strangers, we don't know each other at first, really understand who I am? And it's that family dynamic that maternity homes really glorify.
Yeah.
And I always say they're the hands and feet of Jesus, because they are present. They are right there in the morning, noon, and night, walking with moms.
Good. So now the Bethlehem House has become a nationally recognized model. Over the years of you working with maternity homes, how have you seen that model change, and how has it evolved?
It's beautiful. Bethlehem House does such great work, and I felt so blessed to be involved with it when I was. So I've been gone from Bethlehem House almost coming up on 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so, being present there when I was, it was just that, my background, even educationally, is political science and human services. But I'll be honest, it's just being present and watching and witnessing our culture change, because when we opened, the program looked like this. It was, a coaching program, a mentoring program. It was very basic life skills. But by the time I left, it was very, very heavily in deep to serving a woman that struggles with addiction, undiagnosed mental health issues, really significant issues. So as our culture changed, so in there, the program changed. And I think we would all agree that when our culture changes, it means that it's getting more difficult. There's more barriers, there's more opposition. And so we really had to pivot and keep up with that. Mm-hmm. But it was just being present and being, evidence-based, being trauma, informed in care, keeping up on that. What does that look like? Because saying it is this, but doing it looks differently when you're living together. Yeah. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. I think, once again, just being on this side of a young lady making a decision, and then you being on the other side, I think sometimes we don't realize how important that component is. I feel like I wish that there were more maternity homes, or girls realize that I don't even know if they realize that it's an option for them sometimes. And I feel like if they did, it would probably make a huge difference in the choice for them to choose life, and perhaps to leave the environment that they're in. We talk about trauma-informed care and those things that we don't necessarily think that young lady is experiencing, but she certainly is on many levels that we don't always realize.
Right. It's, I used to get frustrated. Sometimes I would say, I'm jumping on a trampoline, saying we're over here, we're doing this, type of work. And I would go give a presentation, and there would be an entire community, close by that said, I didn't know you existed. Yeah. It was like this hidden secret and gem. And things have changed even in the last, I would say, like 3 years since Roe versus Wade and the Dobbs decision. There has been, I believe it's like a 22% increase in maternity homes. So nationwide, there's 498 now. Right. That's quite a few. So there is a movement going on, and there is a need. And, comparing it to my college days, which I'm not comparing it to, but I lived in a sorority, or whether you live in a dorm and you have that sisterhood effect, a lot of that happens and takes places in maternity homes. And so they're getting that sisterhood. They're getting, there's either a house mother model or there's a staffing model, but whoever works there is mentoring, they're coaching, and they're teaching. And it's, there's no off button. Mm-hmm. So in the middle of the night, if a mom goes into labor, maternity homes have to be prepared. How do we handle this? If there's a relapse, the policies, the processes, and the structure are critical.
Good. So maternity homes are, I'm going to say, a powerful intervention in a woman's life. Can you share a story that illustrates how transformative this kind of support can be or has been?
Absolutely. So a woman typically comes in facing multiple barriers, and as God designed us all so differently and so uniquely, there's no one woman alike. So the stories that are in my head have affected my life, and I pause and reflect on that daily because, sometimes, and even as a mother myself, like we think we know, but we don't know. We're doing the best we can. With that being said, the National Maternity Home Coalition, there's a team of us that meet regularly and are constantly evaluating, what works and what doesn't and what we're hearing. And there's, 27, barriers that a woman could come into a home with. Some might have all 27, some might have 10 or 5, and we design programming around, to meet her needs. So I would say when you ask me about one specific story, the most recent one is I remember serving a young mom. She came to us without a GED. She herself grew up in the foster care system. She was a teen mom. That child had been removed from her care and custody through Child Protective Services, and she was pregnant. So she came to the program and struggled, just worked really, really hard. She was young, and I say young, if you're a parent, sometimes there's some frustrations with teens. They appear to know a lot, and there was that going on, and she really fought the program and fought, when I mean fought in a good way too, to stay in. She really, no matter how mad she would get, she fought back to stay engaged. And she was just about ready to pass her GED testing, and the law changed. So they made her start over. And I thought that was going to be, it for her. She was very frustrated. She didn't. She stayed in there and she got that GED. She graduated. She transitioned out with both of her children. She got the other one back out of foster care, got into an apartment, and remained active through aftercare, which a lot of maternity homes have now, which is amazing and needed. That was about 12 years ago. That mom graduated this past week from College of St. Mary's as a nurse. She would tell you that it was very specific people throughout her journey, different people that empowered her, that encouraged her, that motivated her to stay engaged. And she said it was that powerful intervention in a relationship. The relationships that she met along the way inspired her. For the first time, she believed in herself. Wow. And then she kept believing in herself and kept going. She didn't want it to end. She didn't want that family feeling to end. And, I always say I'm the big mouth for maternity homes nationally. That's what we bring to the table is there is no one right way or how to do this inside of a home. Yes, there's best practices. Yes, there's liability involved. However, it's the breakdown of the family that got us to this spot. And when we bring that together, no matter what that looks like, it's showing individuals what a family looks like, functions like, and feels like. And I think we can agree here that through family, anything is possible. And what this young woman now is a nurse and giving back and will attribute, her transformation. I believe she said it, and I quoted her once saying this and would write stuff down. Nobody loved her enough to be honest with her enough to tell her the truth. And so there's these conversations that you all have here and that maternity homes have consistently as well. They're not loving, easy conversations. They're loving, hard conversations. Yeah. So it's powerful.
Oh, wow. God places us in families. I mean, I think he designed us to be in families. And so when we don't have those natural families that are supportive, that's where pregnancy centers and pregnancy help organizations and maternity homes come into play. And so thank God for what you all are doing.
Hi, this is Kyle with Assure Women's Center. Right now, your donation to support Assure's life-saving work can go even farther. Some donors have challenged us to raise $500,000, and if we do it, they will give us an additional $120,000. But we only receive the $120,000 if we raise $500,000 by June 13th. Last year, we served over 1,600 women, many at high risk for abortion. With your help, we can reach even more. Be part of this life-saving work. Go to firststeptolife.com/bot and give now. That's firststeptolife.com/bot. Thank you.
Welcome back to Life Matters. I'm Toni Clarke, and we're continuing our conversation with Gina Tomes, co-founder of Bethlehem House, founder of Maternity Home Consulting, and Executive Director of the new Guiding Grace Motherhood Support Network. Gina, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Your program has always stood out for its depth. You don't just, meet the physical needs. You've developed curriculum around parenting, addiction recovery, theology of the body, and faith formation. Why is this whole person long-term approach so important?
Because it is not getting done in a whole bunch of other places. I think, when you have the breakdown of the family, or say, that was where my heart was with these moms. I really had a chance to get to know them, and through an intake process or whatever that may look like. I was born, luckily and blessed, into a family where my parents cared for me and kept me safe. And I noticed increasingly more and more that young women were growing up really not being kept safe and not having that parent household or that motherly or fatherly figure. So we were basically, dare I say, reparenting, having conversations on how to make your bed, how to get to school on time, hygiene, sexual integrity, loving faith conversations.
Gotcha. I think one of the criticisms for particularly pregnancy help organizations and the pro-life movement is that we're only concerned about the life of the baby. And programs like, the maternity homes and things that you've created or helped create really speaks to that we're not just concerned about the baby. We are concerned about the end game. We're in it for the end game. We want to see lives transform. We want to see families thriving. And so I think, once again, when you look at the pro-life movement, you can't just look at the pregnancy centers that are, rescuing babies. You have to look at the entirety of the pro-life movement. We really we are for life, not just the life of the baby, but for wholesome life.
100%. That's the work that's being done is you are for that mom's life and that father's life and the family's life.
What are some of the most common challenges women face when they walk through the doors of a maternity home? And how do you and your team begin that healing process?
There are a million challenges. And, in today's culture, so very good, deep assessments take place, and professional. Maternity homes are professionally run. They're not for the faint of heart, because it is not glamorous, easy, or anything in between. And so, I would say that those professional assessments and then care plans really take things to a whole nother level. Whether a woman is facing the barrier of, lack of education, we're going to make sure that's being addressed and identified. There's barriers such as addiction. Does she need treatment? Does she need a mental health assessment? Is she being kept safe? Was she a victim of domestic violence or trafficking? You really have to know how to address those issues. And most maternity homes do not do it alone. Yeah. They collaborate with experts from all over the community.
Good. So let's talk about your newest endeavor, Guiding Grace Motherhood. What inspired you to start it, and how does it build on the work you've already done in maternity housing?
Guiding Grace Motherhood Support Network is truly, a dream come true. There are, several alumni from maternity homes that I have just been blessed to get to know and walk alongside of that have impacted my life. And I don't think that there's ever a better time than this specific moment of time that we're in today to take the pro-life movement to a continuous advancing level. As I mentioned, our culture is difficult. There is divides. And when we welcome that precious baby into the world, there's so much more that mom wants to accomplish, deserves to accomplish, and desires to accomplish. So Guiding Grace is a continuation of aftercare services that go on and on. Bridging out of poverty, ending homelessness, tackling addiction. Toni, none of those things happen in a day or a year. Yeah. They're continuous. And I just feel like let's now have that conversation and let's engage in the next steps. And it's been tremendously successful in the fact that, being open, having been open for a year, over 350 families have reached out and saying, I want to be a part of this. And so that tells us that there's a big need and desire in our community.
Wow. So what's beautiful about Guiding Grace is that it doesn't stop at birth or even after the baby's first year. It does offer parenting support, recovery groups, education, mentorship, even children's programming. So why did you feel called to create something that continues walk with these families for as long as they need?
I truly felt called for two reasons. One being the need and the mission that the moms continuously reported they wanted more care and fellowship. It was that sense of belonging. I am not super young, and there is a disconnect in our culture. People isolate. They're on their phones a lot. The phones can be great tools, but they're not connecting enough relationship-wise. And they desired that. They wanted to come, and I kept thinking, are these classes going to be full? And they were flocking because they were sharing a meal. They were making eye contact. It was social, and they wanted to keep learning and achieving. And there is a dedication and a commitment to that. That's not done overnight. The second reason is I'm not getting any younger. And that generation that is in the workforce behind me, I've had a lot of people ask, what is your why? And do you get burned out? Burnout is a real thing. And I was really blessed, and I still am, to have people around me that care for me, that pour into me, and then I'm able to pour into other people. But I really wanted to teach some leadership and some, pass along, because we're not going to be working this level forever. But I felt like, again, the time is now to really pass the torch and to really leave that on the table so that the next generation can step in and take this even further.
Absolutely. I remember just kind of, I'm going to say, watching your journey as you transition from Bethlehem House and, just trying to, figure out where God was calling you in that. And I remember talking about, I don't know if it was called Guiding Grace at Motherhood at the time, but just remember talking about or hearing about your dreams. And I'm like, that is the best thing. It's like so cool that you thought of that. And I mean, we see it. We know the girls need it. And so I'm just really grateful that, you heard the Lord call and you answered his call. And that you're allowing him to work through you to provide for moms and families.
Thank you.
You also provide fellowship and support for fathers and children.
Oh,
it's
goodness.
not just about the moms.
Yes.
It really is a family-focused model. How important is it that for that long-term success for the women and families you serve?
It's critical, and there's no one family alike. And so the fact that we're seeing men surface and say, I need help too, I want this, it is beautiful. I don't think we're getting too far ahead of ourselves where we're saying this is who we are and this is what we do. We're open enough to let the next few years determine where this movement takes us, into smaller towns, serving fathers. There's grandparents that are raising kiddos that are saying, I need help too. And so we really lifted all time limits and are welcoming the entire family for services.
Good. So through Maternity Home Consulting, you're also working with organizations across the country. What are some of the common challenges maternity homes face today, and how do you help them overcome those obstacles? You're kind of doing, you're helping a lot, but how do you specifically help them?
Yes, maternity homes. So I mentioned there's been a surge in maternity homes, and I have, for example, 3 reached out this week, and the most common question they have is, how do you retain staff? How do you retain staff, and what type of model? And there is no one perfect model. Like, there's great models everywhere: staff, live-in house parents. And so depending on what model that community desires, I would say the biggest challenge is staffing, because it is a lot and there's no off time. And it's funding consistently kind of throws some curveballs at us. And so we do this as a community. We're not alone.
Okay. So Gina, you said that Guiding Grace is designed to be replicable. What would you say to someone listening today who might want to bring this kind of support to their own community?
I love that, because sharing is everything. It's not ours to keep, it's ours to share. Right. And if we are onto something that works, that goes so deep, that what our dream and our prayer is to affect the culture, to create a culture where abortion becomes unthinkable. And to do that, we have to go very deep and very long. And with that, this typical model, this model that we've created between the classes, the case management, can be packaged per se for any community or any organization, depending on how big they want it to get or how small they want it to go. Let's just even say an addiction and recovery center. There's a lot of those in our nation. And when people leave there, they go back home.
Yeah.
But this can be replicated and used as their aftercare. I just think we need to get uncomfortable and say, we want to continue walking with our families. Other families need more financial education, more health care, more of this, where, you know, somebody else might enjoy the fellowship and the faith formation piece. And so this can really be, you know, equipped to fit any community or any nonprofit's aftercare.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You know, once again, just things you don't think about, the pieces, you know, whether it's a maternity home or whether it's a addiction recovery. I was thinking about your needing people, you know.
Yes.
Finding good people, and whether it's a volunteer or staff, people have to have a heart to help those that are in need.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Gina, thank you for your tireless work and your faithfulness to the mission of life. If you want to learn more about Guiding Grace, visit guidinggracemotherhood.org. To connect with Gina's consulting work for maternity homes, you can visit maternityhomeconsulting.com. This has been Life Matters, where we seek truth, speak hope, and equip believers to stand for life in their communities. I'm Toni Clarke. Until next time, take care and keep being a voice for life.
We want to thank you for joining us on Life Matters this week. Life Matters is an educational outreach resource of Assure Women's Center in Omaha, Nebraska. To learn more about the ministry of Assure, visit firststeptolife.com. That's firststeptolife.com. There you can learn about the many services we provide, including how we come alongside abortion-minded mothers and empower women to choose life for her and her baby, as well as find our most current broadcasts and all of our past episodes. Right now, your donation to support Assure's life-saving work can go even farther. Some donors have challenged us to raise $500,000, and if we do it, they will give us an additional $120,000. But we only receive the $120,000 if we raise $500,000 by June 13th. Last year, we served over 1,600 women, many at high risk for abortion. With your help, we can reach even more. Be part of this life-saving work. Go to firststeptolife.com/bot. and give now. That's firststeptolife.com/bot. Thank you.